Happy Halloween, everybody. Yeah, it's me, Victor. We're a home stretch away from the holiday, but there's plenty of spooks still left to go around. Ugh. Anyway, I know this title probably seemed like a rant, but believe it or not, it's actually just a walk down memory lane with an eye roll or two. But what do you expect when some people try to make a mess of something sacred like Halloween? Anyway, with that aside, I really hope you come back next week. I'm going to be able to stick one more holiday show right there on Halloween, an often forgotten, mostly ignored Halloween cartoon. You think you know what it is? Well, if not, why don't you come back and find out? I'm Victor, and straight out of the GEN Xperience, how to trick or treat the way it was intended. How changes over time have affected our community, like aren't things expensive enough without boo bags? And how to embrace some of the postmodern Halloween without eliminating the spirit of what worked for decades. Or is it too late? Let's go. No alarm clock needed. You were up. It was October 31st, Halloween, the big day, what you'd been preparing for all month. Falling on a school night changed nothing. It all went down the same whether Friday, Saturday, or Tuesday. School was the pregame. During grade school and even into middle school, Halloween meant crafts and costumes over classwork. We worked hard to put our looks together, and the afternoon would be void of learning while anticipating a night of traditional festivities, with a little party of nibbles, a costume parade, and even a contest. This was after we cut or designed our own jack-o'-lanterns from construction paper. This was all part and parcel of the annual celebration. Sounds from a graveyard played in the classroom or gym before the last bell rang. We just completed the first prerequisite to Halloween while running home to get ready for the main event. The modern Harvest Fest or Autumn Carnival that has replaced the school Halloween party is not necessarily a bad thing. Although rarely falling on the holiday itself, it's the erasure of Halloween's mysterious and spooky side that often generates annoyance. Oh, there are treats and even games. Kids might even come in costume, but more often than not, scary ones are completely frowned upon. Just one bold move in the fight to whitewash what made Halloween special to begin with. Eliminate one thing by creating another. Perhaps all these changes are for the kid who couldn't join in if it was called Halloween. We can't disappoint the minority, so we just rebrand the traditions. Get them a K-pop demon hunter costume, and they can enjoy the benefits of sweets without having to participate in the rest of that, trick-or-treating. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't this all just Halloween, but without the spooky? The hypocrisy! I don't know, I think there's room for both, not one or the other. Daylight savings wouldn't move from the last Sunday in October to November until 2007. If you were really lucky, the switch had already been made and it was dark not long after arriving home from school. That meant more time to be out, alone, at night. The earliest trick-or-treaters had already begun, usually the very young. With the little ones in early, parents were freed up to man the door for the throngs of neighborhood kids. They weren't coming out with us. We had reached a certain age where if a big brother wasn't needed, a flashlight was your only protection while you prowled the streets for sweets. Some kids had a costume for school and the real one waiting for trick-or-treating. Was that you? Either way, you made sure everything was ready to pop that sucker on after dinner. Speaking of dinner, moms made certain a good hearty meal was served before allowing you to set foot outside the house. This was their attempt to stifle our appetite for candies along the route. Oh, we kids knew better. Nothing was going to stop us from living dangerously and slyly sneaking into our bucket before each piece was carefully inspected when we got home. What did you have for dinner? I had chili. It was a tradition, and it made me like chili. Being from the Pacific Northwest, snow on Halloween wasn't out of the question, and a jack-o'-lantern takes on a whole new magical look covered in snow. The meal warmed our bellies, and a glow stick lit our way. Or reflective tape, if you had an overprotective mother. Unless you're the awesome and only kid dressed as Tron. What a way to ruin a perfectly awesome costume, right? That and sweatpants or a winter jacket under a vampire cape or princess dress. But safety first, and we knew it. Kids from the GEN Xperience were never sheltered from the fate of children who didn't heed the warning signs of danger. Oh no, but we weren't missing Halloween, and you can bet that was not an idle threat from our parents. So whatever it took to get out of the house, walk the streets of our neighborhood, continue the age-old tradition of knocking on doors for trick-or-treats, we were in. Kids making their own costume today.
Ho ho, very funny. Ha ha, it is to laugh.
Using discarded clothing or having to put together things found around the house would only incite temper tantrum for not getting the hottest costume off the rack at Target. Garbage bags, cotton balls, yeah, they may look like shit today, and I'd agree. But with all the DIY options out there, the possibilities are endless if kids would just use their imagination. But I know that's a lot to ask. Not to mention, it'll still cost you a fortune to ensure that perfect social media post alongside trendy rose gold home decor in a family group costume that the kids didn't even get a say in. Moms didn't swing by and pick up a costume for their little one to throw on last minute. If you wanted to take part in Halloween during the GEN Xperience, you made the decisions, you put in the work, and made the effort. Yeah, just try that on your precious angel this Halloween. Only the meanest teachers gave homework on Halloween, but if it happened, it was completed long before dinner. Your costume was on in a flash and you were antsy to go. The house had been decorated for weeks. It was your night to shine like the eerie jack-o'-lanterns now lit with their amber glow, flickering through their hand-carved openings. Dad or Big Brother were in charge of the candy bowl and possibly Chief Character at the door for incoming kids. It's all coming back to you, isn't it? Seeing more revelers on the street, you had to get out there. You worried all the best candy would be gone, while impatiently enduring Mom's Kodak moment. It was just dark enough and anticipation was on overdrive. Risking families running out of candy or closing up shop early was the real fear on Halloween. How many houses we could get to, how far would we go to get to them was top priority as we headed out.
My little goblins will be out long after dark.
It wasn't uncommon for an older sibling to walk behind us, depending on our age. Families had more than 1 or 2 children back then. You know, in case they lost one, they had another to spare. So if your group was big enough, or if one of you was of a certain age, you were now in charge of the little ones, and a chaperone wasn't necessary. Meeting up with other neighborhood kids was inevitable, friends from the block to travel in packs with. We felt camaraderie and safety with friends in tow as we navigated houses that invited us with themed decorations or even just an illuminated porch light, the unspoken language that this house was participating. Back home, an older brother might be answering the door in a creepy mask, but that was child's play when it came to the front yard cemeteries that a handful of neighbors constructed. A tombstone and bone-filled obstacle course was thrilling, giving us pause but enticing us to venture forward. If they went the extra mile, a little dry ice went a long way and was employed to give the proper air of foreboding.
For wedding?
And at the end of the spooky stroll, a figure sits motionless. Was it real or just a prop? We took a chance not to be branded as chickens to get our sugary prize. We braved the scary scene and the predictable jump scare offered by the homeowners to the chuckle of random dads watching from afar. An initial fright turned fun as our adrenaline leveled out. It's Halloween. This is how it was. The one we hope to have and the one we remember well. Memories unlocked. Clambering up the walk, someone in the group had to do it. They knocked. Throngs of smiling adults greeted us the same way each time, occasionally wearing a costume themselves. Couples would often answer together, holding their bowl or basket of goodies as they cracked open the door to an unhinged chorus of, usually screamed at the top of the lungs. Canned but sincere enthusiasm and surprise radiated from those we knew or had never met, and was accompanied by the usual, "How cute! Well, look at this! Wow, so many of you!" and the very common, "What are you all supposed to be?" followed by each kid rattling off the answer, before being offered the bowl to pick from or to be properly handed something. You made it up the walk, rang the doorbell, and yelled the idle threat. You were rewarded for all of your hard work you put into the holiday. And believe me, just approaching and having to talk to adults wasn't always easy. Now, just rinse and repeat for a few exciting hours trekking through the night, going from house to house in a neighborhood both familiar and yet new to us. If someone didn't answer, they didn't answer. You moved on. If the house light wasn't on, don't waste your time. You moved on. There was a lot of ground to cover, and the clock was ticking. At some point, this night was gonna end, and everyone knew the kid with the most candy wins. What did you collect candy in? Were you a pillowcase kind of kid? Many were, especially when older. Personally, the jack-o'-lantern bucket had a traditional quality I leaned into. Not just any bucket, though. Choices may have ranged from Frankenstein to whatever this is, but I chose the long pumpkin bucket with the fiendish smirk and wink. Just enough creepiness, but more importantly, more room. And just like a pillowcase, you could refill as needed, if you wanted to trek all the way back. And yes, there was the occasional query, "Aren't you a little old to be trick-or-treating?" Few batted an eyelash if a 13, 14, or even a 15-year-old stopped by to get into the act. They always seemed to make an effort to dress up back then, unlike today. But I'll be honest with you, with 0 trick-or-treaters in my neighborhood today, I don't care if you're a 34-year-old with a martini in one hand and a burning Pall Mall in the other, knocking at my door on Halloween. You better believe I'm giving you a Snickers. Where did they all go, you ask? Well, that is where the modern world has taken us. To be fair, there are wonderful, wonderful neighborhoods and locations and areas that are plumb filled with trick-or-treaters. I just don't live in one. But it's not everywhere, not like it used to be. Trunk or treat seems to be winning half the war. A war against what? I don't know. Although the phrase may have once been a way to extort treats from homeowners so as not to play tricks on them, the trick-or-treat etiquette has not been that sinister for almost a century. Just rules to a game that most of the neighbors were playing, and no one wanted to breach that etiquette. Today, many parents don't even teach their kids to utter the phrase at the door, with some cockamamie excuse that we teach them not to talk to strangers. Although true, we were taught exceptions, right? I guess to some people, Halloween is Grinch night. Kids looked forward to yelling those words to any adult who opened the door. Today, as trick-or-treating is still the general name for the activity, during planned or organized events at parking lots, trunk or treat has just become long lines of kids going car to car and staring. Instead of going up to someone you see almost every day on your street, trunk or treat has your kid approaching a stranger in their car for candy. See where I'm going with that? Holding out containers robotically while well-meaning Karens dump treats or prizes into buckets and bags with not a single thought to the very thing that made the holiday special to them in the first place, when they were young, assuming they were once young. Do you ever think parents today might be engaging in Halloween as a series of check boxes? There's little anticipation without context for what is going on and why we're all doing it. Although it is well documented that we are statistically much safer today than we were in the 70s and 80s, the unfiltered and constant barrage of doom scrolling and the unrelenting pressure from the online warlords that parents bow down to, trust in neighbors and your community is at an all-time low. Ironic, since few people take the time to acknowledge or say hi to them. No wonder fewer people participate in decorating or leaving their light on Halloween. This is who's winning the other half of the war. Unless you're in New York City or maybe Atlanta, where trick-or-treating in your neighborhood is an establishment, a rite of passage that folks take pride in and go all out for. The social media Halloween hounds, they don't get all gussied up to trick-or-treat where they live. No, after they've curated pictures, they turn off all the lights and drive to a place they can trust. An affluent, upscale neighborhood, read that as rich, that obviously provides more safety and full-size candy bars, something very rare in the 70s and 80s. Brand name candy wasn't foreign to us, and the fun size, not these ridiculous minis, were popular at the start of the 80s. But where the skeleton candy that came in a coffin was also a puzzle, or individual packs of candy corn. Even a Kool-Aid pack felt like a score. No joke. We longed for holiday-themed packaging and once-a-year offerings. It wasn't the same old seen at the register every day kind of candy. It was fun. Unique flavors and tastes we either never saw except at this time of year, or the stuff we just never thought to try. Why rehash what we got trick-or-treating here when you can watch my last year's popular and divisive episode? Yes, we ate that. You'll love it, and I don't have to repeat myself here. However, I will add something I had not before. Although fresh baked goods were on their way out during my youth for trick-or-treating, candy can't be enjoyed by every kid. So where the hell are the McDonald's gift certificates? $1 for 20? Worth a soda or cone? Come on! This is the treat that keeps giving. Halloween certainly doesn't look like what it did at the turn of the 20th century, and for good reason. There was certainly chaos until commercialization created traditions people could gravitate to. Of course, Halloween's roots are hundreds of years old. But the modern holiday can be really traced back to the 1950s. The days of bonfires started by children running wild in the town square have passed, and begging for treats so as not to be targeted for disturbing pranks has turned into a party game that takes place on festive streets of your community. While mischief night and hardcore pranks were becoming less of a problem, the holiday was accepted into common culture and globally marketed. The GEN Xperience wasn't free of some general mischief making though. We all saw or participated in TPing of a house, a charming inconvenience that usually involved toilet tissue entangled in your trees, or the more disruptive egging. Ugh. The occasional violent crimes committed during Detroit's Devil's Night were one-offs that, as Halloween rituals found cadence, these kinds of rebellions took a back seat. As Halloween night dragged on and you got further and further away from the house, the noise of chattering children, shuffling feet, quiet giggling, and the shriek of trick-or-treat began to fade. Less lights were on and folks were turning in. You turned around. Perhaps there was a house or two you missed that was still willing to increase your candy numbers, but it was bound to happen. Halloween was over. No more animated TV specials or Halloween-themed episodes of your favorite shows. No more candy, makeup, or beer commercials. The witching hour was upon us as the chill enveloped the night, and you hurried home. You took some time to chuck those apples long and far down the street. You didn't want to risk razor blades. You remember fondly the friends you met along the way and new ones you made. You told the stories of the houses that scared you, but not really. After evaluating your spoils, you wondered how much money were in those foil-wrapped coin rolls, and you knew you'd be eating this for the next week. Not to mention trading candies for other ones among friends. But first, Mom checked all the treats for anything suspicious. Thankfully, she wasn't concerned enough to take them to get x-rayed. Yeah, that was the thing. Unlike Thanksgiving, Christmas, or Easter, steeped in family get-togethers, Halloween is targeted on the individual or small groups and allows the community to be involved with each other. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers of any age. Halloween is about fantasy, and everyone is invited into the fun with those around them. Don't get me wrong, there's room for change, new traditions, just not at the expense of the spirit of the OG Halloween. It's like they're just removing the scary. So what's the point? Scary worked for us. I hope you enjoyed revisiting a Halloween that might be familiar to many of you from a certain generation. Eating chili on Halloween is still a tradition I keep every October 31st, even if it's hotter than balls in Florida. Thank you for being here. Please give me a treat with a like and subscribe, and until next time.